Many photographers preach you shouldn't crop photos, or that you aren't a real photographer if you do. But that's complete nonsense. You should crop your photos. Hi, I'm Hugo. I travel and photograph the world full time, and I help outdoor photographers go from button clickers into storytelling photographers. In this video, I'll go through why I often crop photos and why you should too. But before we dive in, if you haven't checked out Focus Notes, my newsletter where I share exclusive photography insights from my photography journey, make sure to join us from the link in the description. Alright, so many photographers indeed tell you do not crop and that you should always get it in camera, but that's complete nonsense. Many pros crop as well, so you can too, but there's good cropping and bad cropping, and that's what I go through in this video. In the beginning I made big mistakes with cropping, so I hope this video is gonna help you stop and avoid making those mistakes as well. I'll go through 5 key points, and the last point is especially why I crop my photos and why you should too. So let's start this with why do people say you shouldn't be cropping your photos. Before I go into that though, I want to say that if you believe cropping is a bad thing, now between you and I believe this means that you aren't a great photographer yet. The great photographers that I know, my colleagues and stuff, and the ones that I look up to still this day, they aren't afraid of cropping. So if you think cropping is a bad thing, that shows that you probably have still room to grow, which is a thing that you should be inspired by. And those photography teachers who say you shouldn't crop, I wouldn't listen to them because I don't think that they know what they're talking about. But now why do some of these people then tell you to not crop? I mean, there must be some reason to it, right? And there is. Typically there is that either one, you should be good enough to get it all in camera, or then number 2 is that if you do crop, then you lose quality. So let's tackle both of these. First of all, not all photography allows you to just get it perfectly in camera. Now, of course, that's the ideal situation. Like, ideally, you wouldn't crop. But if you do crop, it doesn't make you any worse photographer. If anything, I think it might make you a better photographer because you understand it's not a bad thing to do. If you just take like static landscape photos, which I like taking as well, then you probably can crop less because there isn't like as many things, changing around. There's the landscape and that's it. And you probably have quite a good chunk of time to also get that shot. You probably aren't in a very big hurry. But if you do add some moving element, say there's a human who's in the landscape, if you're photographing an animal, if you're photographing a person or something else outdoors, then typically, sometimes you need to just be very fast at getting the photo. And then the framing immediately out of camera might not be as you wished it to be. Or maybe it is pretty good, but you do notice in post-production that, hey, this could be a bit better if I did crop. So the question is, if you realize your photo would be better if you did crop, why on earth would you not crop? Back in the day, it wasn't obvious to me. But right now, it's like, of course you crop if it makes for the better photo. The point of cropping is that the photo is better. That's why you crop. But here's the second part then, is that yes, there are extents that like you shouldn't, first you should be aware of what camera are you shooting. That I use Sony a7 III, and I typically have pretty decent possibilities to crop. I have 24 megapixels, so not the highest, but also not like 12. So I know I can do some cropping. But if I crop a ton, then yeah, it's not gonna look good. So you shouldn't crop like insanely much. But can you crop a little bit? I bet most cameras can. But then how many megapixels do you have? Then that's gonna also then decide what's the length you can go with it. But still, I'd say all cameras out there can do some cropping. And some cropping is typically what makes the best difference anyway. Is that, like you shouldn't try to do like insane cropping just randomly to your shots. The second point I want to tackle is that you shouldn't be on field and think, I'll just take some photo now and then I will crop it in post. Don't think like that. That's a mistake. Always aim to get the best possible photo on field and then crop if you feel you can make the photo better than in post-production. If you can zoom into something on field, zoom into that and take the photo instead of just taking a wide angle and then try to zoom in. Some people do that, like they try to take a wide angle and zoom in, then later in post, but that the quality is gonna be rubbish. So don't do that. Always aim to optimize the photo on field. Third point, and this is one of the main reasons why I like cropping myself. Understanding that the crop of the photo does change the story of the photo. So the message that you're telling through your photo. Understand that. And what you should always lead with on field is, what do I want to say with this photo? What's the story I want to tell? And then when you do take the photo and then you import it to your editing software and you look at it, if you feel like, well, the crop isn't really doing it justice, or like the crop is somewhat stopping from the message that I want to tell to come through, in that case, you should crop. Or if you feel like, okay, well, the photo is somewhat telling this like in a very nice way, but I could still optimize it better, then go ahead and optimize it. For example, this photo right now here, this one was originally pretty well composed and I didn't do much cropping, but then I did crop it a little bit to fit the exact story I wanted to tell with the photograph. And that's one of the key things I want you to understand. The story is the most important thing. It's more important than the resolution of the photos, the sharpness of the photos. It is the most important thing. That's what makes the difference between a technically okay photo and then a great photo. But of course, cropping alone doesn't make for a for a great photo or like framing. There's many elements to it. And this is what I help my students do in Storyline's mentorship. So I help them go from button clickers into storytelling photographers who can be proud and confident in their work and get wow reactions out of people. So if you do want to apply to get into the mentorship to work with me privately, then DM me ready on Instagram to apply. Or then if you don't have Instagram, then just hit the other link in the description. Point 4 that I want to tackle is that it's important to know what crop to actually choose. Because, if you choose the wrong crop, then it's gonna tell the wrong message and it's not gonna be optimized the best way. So the best crop does depend on where are you gonna have your photo at. Is it gonna be living on your wallpaper? Is it gonna be on a website? Is it gonna be on your social media? Is it gonna be in a magazine? What's the place? So that's why you want to get clear on first, the purpose of the photo, where it's gonna be, display that, and then that's gonna also affect what crop you use. I typically, my mission is to show the beauty of nature to as many people as possible, and I do this with Instagram. And that's why I optimize my photos for Instagram. So I use either 4x5 or 3x4, which is nowadays allowed. Those are the ones I use to get the most screen space on Instagram. But then you should go with something else if you don't care about optimizing for social media, but you want to put it somewhere else. So get clear on where do you want it displayed, and then choose the best crop according to that. As the bonus point before the number 5, I forgot to mention this earlier, is that when you do crop, then you can crop out some elements that you might not be able to get rid of otherwise. Now, of course, there's Photoshop. You can always go and remove basically anything what you want from a photograph, especially now with the AI tools out there. But if you're anything like me, you don't really like removing a ton from photos, that you want to keep it as much as like how you saw it. And cropping allows us to remove also less from photos. So if there's some distracting elements, like around the edges or somewhere in the frame, then if you do choose a different kind of a crop, like you either crop in or you choose different aspect ratio for the photo, then it might be that the composition, the photograph overall works much better. For example, now I'm working on some orangutan photos from my adventure to Sumatra that I made in June. And some photos where the orangutan are, they just like don't really perfectly work with like 3x4. So then I've chosen 4x5 because then that crops out some distracting elements. So you can also use cropping for that, and I would recommend to use it for that too. And then number 5, I want that you understand it's very useful if you do have some flexibility. So instead of trying to get like everything perfectly on field, then it can be good to leave some breathing room. What I mean by this is that if I'm taking a bit more zoomed in photo, I always aim to avoid zooming in too much. I rather zoom in a bit less, and then in post-production, I can decide how much do I want to be zoomed in. I am fully aware that on field there's so many things going on, and especially if the scene is very fast moving, then there's a chance that I do go and zoom in too much. I'm very self-aware that everyone makes mistakes. So that's why I sometimes then zoom in less, that then I can look like at the photo the second time than when it's on my screen. And then I can decide whether that original crop was great, or if I want to a little bit zoom in with the crop. And that's how then I optimize that. And indeed, understanding we all make mistakes, no matter how good photographer one is. Sometimes you do zoom in, for example, too much. So that's why I and other pros do like to also have some flexibility when it comes to this. And also it comes helpful if you want your photo to be displayed somewhere external, such as like magazines, for example. That when I've been in magazines, I'm not sure if they have put text on my photos, but I know that sometimes they do like the option of having that. So then if you do have a photo that's very like cramped in, and there's no way that you can then make it, less zoomed in, then you might not get your photo to a magazine or somewhere else. So also understand that. As a side point, on field, if you do have the time, it's good to take photos that are both vertical, like vertical crop, and then horizontal, because if you want to get to a magazine or sell your photos at some point, then the client might want to have another version. And then if you don't have that, that sucks. So anyway, these are the 5 points that are very important. But if you didn't know all of this, then you will also find this video very useful, where I bust other 5 myths that you absolutely must know. So watch the next, and see you there, and make sure to subscribe and leave a like.